Welcome everybody, my name is Kelley Wacher and I'm a facilitator of change for thinking in behaviour and performance. My business is called Corporate Magic and people ask me if I pull a rabbit out of my hat and I say no, the magic is in you, not in me. I am passionate about people and their behaviour and that's what today is all about. So welcome to Resilience and Mental Toughness through Strengths and Values. One of the things that I really love is the work I do and my ability to be able to share that with you. Yeah, it's not about just being able to share your wisdom, but for you to reveal your own in this unprecedented time that we are going through. So let's talk about what mental toughness is. Researchers define it as a personality trait which determines in large part how people deal effectively with challenges, stresses and pressure, irrespective of circumstances. So meaning that it's across the board, across every aspect of your life. It's important to note that people with mental toughness usually show it consistently. So somebody who is mentally tough has a combination of a few things: willpower, skill, and resilience. So one of the first things we think about is know your outcome. Intention is the will and willpower. What is your intention in your action? It's that determination to achieve. Awareness of values is about knowing what our values are and how we're being consistent with them. I guess it all boils down to how we create change by choice, not by chance. It's our choice to change the terms that we are living on. If you're facing a big challenge, it might be a time when you feel scared or you feel helpless or hopeless, and it's okay to be vulnerable. And people with mental toughness going through what we're going through at the moment really also need to be aware of how to build their emotional armour. So when we're building our emotional armour, we ask ourselves 4 questions. 1, what can I control? 2, what is it that I can actually influence? 3, what is out of my control? And do I understand that things that are out of my control are things that I can do nothing about? 4, what can I do differently right now? And that's one of my favourites. It's when I ask those first 3 questions, it provides me an opportunity to say, well, with all that in mind, this is what I can do now. If you give up at this point, your own stinking thinking, as I like to call it, will retain your thoughts in past experiences and leave you feeling scared and helpless and hopeless. And, you know, it's now that we want to explore alternative ways for you to view the situation that you're in. Courage is that willingness to feel the fear and do it anyway, per the book that's written of the same name by Susan Jeffers. Feel the emotions and do what you need to do. This is an essential element of courage and the awareness to be able to do that. With this courage comes the knowledge and the complexity of well-being and understanding that emotions don't sit on a continuum of happy and sad. They can coexist. Yeah, we can be happy and sad at the same time. Happy about one thing and sad about another. We ask ourselves at this point, why is it that we can have different responses to the same situation? And the 5 reasons around that are these, is that people have different strengths, they have different values, they have a different interpretation of the world around them and of their reality. They have a different perspective that is driven by their experiences and memories and decisions in the past. And they have different abilities to rephrase or reframe situations. These 5 things are also what create our ability to flourish. I wanted to quickly show you a model that was created by Peter Clough, and he calls it his MTQ Plus model. And really, I just want to give a basic understanding of these areas of mental toughness. So he starts with commitment, and commitment on delivering your goals and tasks. Yeah, it's delivery oriented. This is where this determination comes in. Then there's the challenge, which I'm sure we're feeling all very challenged right now. The challenge around how do we stretch ourselves in our current environment, and how do we change our thinking to a growth mindset where we're able to learn from all the things that are happening around us, rather than sink into depression or anxiety or difficult times. Then we have confidence, which is a big aspect at this time. Confidence in our interpersonal selves and our ability to be able to connect with others, and also confidence in our abilities and what we're doing, confidence in our strengths and being able to create an environment where our strengths are providing us opportunities. Then finally, there's control. There is the control that we have over our life and the control that we have over our emotional state and what we're doing with that and what we're putting out there. All of those things together, he talks about creating mental toughness. Moving on to resilience, what we have to understand is life doesn't come with a map for us. It tells us the path that we're going to head on and gives us some certainty around where we're going. It comes with twists and turns, from everyday challenges to traumatic events with more lasting impact. Events like, death of a favourite loved one, or a life-altering accident or incident, or a serious illness. Each of these changes affects people differently, bringing a unique flood of thoughts and strong emotions and uncertainty. Yet people generally adapt well over time to life-changing situations or stressful situations. And in part, that is thanks to resilience. And we know resilience is a part of mental toughness, but on its own, resilience is defined as the process of adapting well to an event in your life, in the face of adversity, in the face of trauma or tragedy, or sources of stress. It's that ability for you to recover quickly or bounce back from a significant event. As much as resilience involves our ability to bounce back, it also provides opportunities for profound personal growth. There are many aspects of your life that you can control, that you can modify, and you can grow, and that is the role of resilience. Becoming more resilient not only helps you to get through difficult circumstances, but it also empowers you to grow and improve your life along the way. Success and happiness are largely determined on how we choose to respond to the events in our lives. Life is not easy. It's a hard teacher. It sends the test first and the lesson afterwards. Now, what the biggest difference between resilience and mental toughness is that mental toughness is ongoing. And if we look at our industry now, we have so many examples of resilience around us. I know in my own business, I started it in the global financial crisis. Then we moved to New Zealand for a year. Then I had all my business in one basket and I lost 80% of my business. Then I joined a company whose financials were not up to scratch. And it was a poor decision and an ego decision. And now COVID-19. That's just me. I'm sure all of you have had incidents and events in your life which you had to build resilience over and you've had to learn from. I mean, look around us. In Australia, as a nation, we have our response to the bushfires. We have people's response to floods, then response to droughts. We have global response to terrorist attacks. In the hospitality and travel industry, there have been so many events that have impacted that industry. For those of you who are old enough to remember, we had the pilot strike, we've had the Ansett collapse, the Compass collapse, we had SARS, the 9/11, and now we've got COVID-19. And through all of those, the industry has survived. It has bounced back. And though this has probably been the most significant of all of those events, I truly believe that we'll bounce back from this as well in some way, shape or form. Let's look at how we increase our resilience. And firstly, we're going to talk a little bit later about self-talk. Self-talk has two factors: how we talk to ourselves about our wellness and the thoughts that we have about ourselves internally. Dr. Tasha Eurich talks about people thinking that they are 95% self-aware when in fact we're only 15% self-aware. Most of us have goals and actions, no matter how small at this period in time. It's so important to have something that feels like you are contributing, or a sense of contribution in society or in your own environment. We're going to talk about increasing or understanding your emotional agility. We look at communication, and the connections that you're creating right now with people, how you're communicating with people, and making sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who are validating and understanding the position that you're in now and open to speaking with you and not judging you for what's happening. We want to stay away as much as we can from people who are being very toxic around us right now, who are just dumping on us. My recommendation is think about who is it you trust, who is it you can see that models the behaviours that you want, and then asking those people or communicating with those people in some way. Have a little bit of fun with your communication at the moment. We're in unusual times where people are using WhatsApp, Instagram, FaceTime, Zoom. You have a Zoom dinner or a FaceTime beverage with your friends. Please don't isolate. They talk about halt, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Whatever you're doing, please make sure that you are connecting with someone. Now more than ever, we can see how important that human connection is that we've been taking for granted for so long with all the increase in our technology. Join a group, do webinars, catch-ups, look at memes, have a laugh. We need to have a laugh. Problem-solving skills. It's hard to be positive when things aren't going your way, but an optimistic outlook empowers you to expect that there is good coming and that good things will happen to you as the time passes. Try visualizing what you want rather than worrying about what you fear. While certain factors might make some individuals more resilient, resilience involves behaviors, it involves thoughts, it involves actions. And the important thing to know here is that anybody can learn and develop resilience. So how do we bounce back? Well, we're going to look for opportunities for self-discovery. People often find that they have grown in some respect as a result of a struggle. Engage your problem-solving skills. Now, acknowledge your emotions. It's okay to have emotions. Manage your emotions. Acknowledge and accept your emotions. It's important to foster some self-discovery here by asking yourself, what can I do about the problems in my life? Or what can I do about the emotion I'm having now? If the problem seems too big, how do I break it down into manageable pieces and just take one chunk at a time? Finding solutions and taking the first step. And firstly, the thing we have to do now is understand that this change is part of life. And know that certain goals or ideals may no longer be attainable as a result of the adverse situation that we're in. When we accept this, it helps us to be able to focus on those circumstances that we can alter, that are within our sphere of influence. Learn from your past. Take a moment, think about the things that have helped you in previous times of distress. Think about how you have managed and responded to other difficult situations in your life. Remind yourself where you've been and the strengths that you called upon to get you through those experiences. Finally, create a gratitude list. Find something, even if it's the smallest thing. And I know sometimes it's difficult to find something to be grateful for, but even if it's going outside and looking at the sunshine, find one thing that you can be grateful for today. I wanted to share a story with you, a quick story with you, and it's a story of strengths. And it's from a book called Soar With Your Strengths by Donald Clifton and Paula Nelson. And essentially the story goes like this. Imagine there's a grassy knoll and then there's a duck and a fish and a monkey and an owl and a rabbit. They decide they want to have a school, so they come up with a curriculum that they believe will make a well-rounded animal. Running, jumping, swimming, climbing and flying. On the first day of school, the rabbit went hopping off to his running class. Ears back, there he was a star. He loved it. The teacher said, "Wow, Rabbit, you really have a talent for running. With some training, you'll get more out of every hop." The rabbit said, "I love it. I love school. I get to do what I like to do and I get to learn to do it even better." Then came tree climbing class. He tried so hard that he hurt his leg. The next class was swimming. Wait a minute. Rabbits do not swim. "Today we jump in the water," the teacher said. "No, I was told that I can't swim. I've been told my entire life I can't swim. Rabbits don't swim. I need to drop this class immediately." Well, the teacher said, you drop out and you flunk out. Now jump in. So the rabbit jumped in. He panicked. He went down once, he went down twice. Bubbles came up. The teacher saw that he was drowning and pulled him out. The other animals laughed, and the rabbit was so humiliated, more humiliated than he had ever been in his entire life. He just wanted to fall into a hole. He wanted desperately to get out of class that day, and he was so glad when it was over. He went home and he said to his parents, I don't like school. I just want to be free. Rabbits should just be free. His parents said, well, you're going to get ahead. You have to get a rabbit diploma. The rabbit said, I don't want a diploma. The parents said, well, you're going to get a diploma whether you want one or not. In the morning, the rabbit headed off to school with a slow hop. He then remembered that the principal had said anytime he had a problem to remember that the counsellor's door was always open. So he went to see the counsellor and said, I don't like school. And he told the counsellor all about it. The counsellor said, Rabbit, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, that you don't like school because you don't like swimming. Is that right? Well, I know just what to do. You're a great runner, so you don't need to work on that anymore. What you need to do is work on swimming. I'll arrange it so that you don't have to go running anymore and you can just have 2 periods of swimming. Well, when the rabbit heard that, he just threw up his paws. Now, what's the point of the story? The wonderful thing about our talents or our strengths, like the rabbit's ability to run and hop, is that they hold great potential for us. It's through our talents that we tap into our greatest potential for success. Consider this. Traditionally, we focus on weakness fixing, what is not going well, and we try to improve the things that we're not good at. Imagine just for a moment what could happen if we shifted our focus to what we do well, to what helps us thrive when we are feeling motivated and inspired, and we just did a whole lot more of that. Now take a moment to think of a time where you felt at your best. Do you have that in mind? Now take a note of what you were doing at that time, what you were feeling. What strength or talent of yours do you think that you were using? You will discover more about who you are and your own behavioural triggers and how to increase your resilience through your strengths and mindset change when you're able to go through that exercise. What we need to understand, and the research that Gallup tells us around strengths, is that when we are working with our talents and strengths, we have higher levels of vitality and energy. We are more likely to achieve our goals. We perform better. We're much more engaged, and we have greater confidence and less stress. Now, who doesn't want that? While strength has its own power and edge, in Gallup's research, 4 distinct theme categories emerged. These domains can serve as a framework to help people see their powerful contributions to themselves, to groups or teams, in relationships and in life in general. And they can be useful for thinking about how our talents and how our strengths impact and affect other people around us. The first one I want to talk about is the executing theme. People with dominant themes in executing, they know how to make things happen. When the team needs someone to implement a solution, these are the people who will work tirelessly to get it done. People with the strength to execute have the ability to catch an idea and make it a reality. Then we have those with the influencing theme. These people sell the team's ideas inside and outside of the organisation. When teams need someone to take charge, to speak up and to make sure the group is heard, look to someone with this influencing strength. Then we have the relationship building themes. People with relationship building themes provide the essential glue that hold teams or people together. Without this strength, a team in many cases is just a group of people that comprise of individuals. In contrast, people with the relationship building strength have the unique ability to help groups become much greater than the sum of their parts. Finally, we've got the strategic thinking group. Those with dominant strategic thinking themes are the ones who keep the team focused on what could be. They are constantly absorbing and analysing information and helping the team make better decisions. People with the strength in strategic thinking continually stretch the team's thinking for the future. So simplistically, imagine this group are on a trek up a mountain. Suddenly, a large boulder comes down and blocks the path. What to do? First, the executors say, oh, let's just break it down. And they attack it with the tools. The influencers are cheering us on, saying, you've got this. Let me show you the way. Let me communicate some clear expectations so everyone knows what to do. Everyone can get in there. The relationship builders are the ones that are handing out water and checking if everyone's okay and seeing if anyone needs to talk and how they're feeling about what's happening now. They are the builders of trust. Now, the strategic thinking group are standing back saying, why are we putting all this effort into smashing down this rock when we could just take that path? So I hope that assists you when you're doing the exercise, thinking about your talents and strengths, which domain they may fit into and how that works with the people around you. I wanted to talk for a moment about the importance of I am in our self-talk. Neuroscience, or our brain science, tells us that each time we say I am in front of a description of ourselves, our unconscious mind creates that as our identity. When you feel frustrated or angry or defeated or just make a mistake, you might say to yourself, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm an idiot, or I'm a failure, or I'm not doing it right. It's no wonder people go into overwhelm, because remember that every time you say I am, you are creating an identity and sending a message to your brain. When considering self-talk, consider these options. Oh, that was a bit silly. Or what can I learn from that mistake? Or, I'm confident I'll get through this. Or, wow, I'm grateful to discover that now and not later. Or, you know what, I'm feeling quite resourceful. In relation to our talents, we're saying, I'm a relationship builder, or I'm strategic in my thinking, or I'm good at getting stuff done, or I'm good at influencing other people, great at connecting. There are so many areas that impact our own self-awareness and sense of self. And one of those is how we speak to ourselves. Now, there are some things that we need to know about our self-talk. 1, it's habitual. 2, it's usually emotionally packed. And 3, it's usually negative. 77% of all the information that we get in the world is negative. So it's not surprising that our self-talk has a negative spin to it. But the most important thing to understand about our self-talk is it is quickly visualized and accepted as truth. And when you accept something as truth, it becomes a belief for you. When we talk about self-awareness, there are 2 areas of self-awareness. One is our internal self-awareness, our values, our passions, and our aspirations. And the second is our external self-awareness, how others are perceiving us, if you like, the truth tellers. The question is, are they congruent? In her book, Emotional Agility, Susan David talks about our emotional hooks that are created by our self-talk. And here for a moment, I want to show you how a random thought can be turned into a persistent hook. It starts when we listen to our internal chatterbox. Oh, I've got a lot of work to do. How can I keep it up? How can I keep up with everyone else? Then we compare ourselves. Other people are so good at it. Why can't I do it as well as other people? Then, thanks to the technicolor thought blending that we have, which creates visualizations of what we're thinking, the chatter blends in with our own memories, our visual images and symbols. And what happens then is it brings an emotional punch. It sounds like this. Oh, I just can't believe I snapped like that. Or I feel so guilty. Or I'm going to die because everyone hates me. Or I just used to love my job, but now I hate it. Or it's just not fair. It's robbing me of my family time. I'm a rotten, miserable failure. My life is a waste of time. Oh boy. What's the solution to that? So, firstly, you need to become very, very aware of your own thoughts. Start noticing the things that you are saying in your head. Stop, listen, and write it down. Practice replacing negative language or thoughts with some reframed positive ones. Reframe just means to put a different frame on a different context on it. I've got a couple of examples around this solution. Try this on for size. first. I'm so useless. Everything I do turns to crap. I don't have enough money. I'm rubbish at relationships. I feel completely unsupported and I'm not very happy at my job. I want to go away next week, but I can't leave the house. And even if I did, it would probably rain. It's just not fair. Now, how are you feeling having blurted that out? All right. Now stop and compare it to this. Combine your values and your strengths and what is important to you and try this on. You know what? I'm really proud of myself. I'm grateful for all the wonderful people that I have around me and the opportunities I have. I am doing the best I can with the resources that I have, and each day I am learning more. I am growing and contributing to my own health, wealth, and well-being in a really great way, and I'm excited about my future. Now notice the difference just in how you feel in your body from hearing that to the first example. It is from these fears and these negative beliefs that our self-talk is created, and it streams through our mind on a fairly consistent basis. The mind is a hard thing to keep quiet. Remember, it's only a thought, and a thought can be changed. Now let's talk about the part that our values play. What are values? Values are the things that are important to us. They are one of our unconscious filters, and they are based on our experiences to date. Values are context specific. Therefore, what's important in one area of your life may not be important in our other area. They are essentially our evaluation filter, how we decide whether our behavior is good or bad, right or wrong, and how we feel about our own actions. We each have our own model of the world, which creates our reality. If our values conflict with another person's values or workplace values, there will be conflict in both of those areas. It would be difficult to sustain a role in a workplace or relationship that has conflicting values to yours. So as an exercise, ask yourself this question. What is important to me about my career or my relationship or my finances? So what area of your life, okay? What is important to me about X? Now, when you've asked yourself that question, remember a time where you were really motivated. What was happening in that time? And as you think of that time, write down all the words you can think of on a piece of paper. What were the words that were creating that motivation? What was happening for you at that time? Then as you've written, sort of brainstormed all those words out on a piece of paper, I want you to review that list. And that is a list of values. See if there are any that you want to add or remove. Now look at the list and narrow the most important down to 10. You can do this by looking at similarities or sameness. Once you've narrowed the list of 10, prioritize in order of importance and narrow them down to 5. Look at those 5. These 5 are the key values, the non-negotiables that people consistently will notice about you if you truly model the behavior in line with your values. I'll give you an example of my own values. My values are determination, to keep going, results, flexibility in behavior, the ability to contribute and to be able to engage people. And I feel that that's what I do in the work that I do. So essentially, our values create our belief systems. What is important that your values can change as your life changes? For example, if you move from a single status to a family status with a small child, your family values are likely to change, as will your level of accountability and responsibility now that you have another human being depending on you for survival. Most people never question their beliefs because they are set in stone, because all our thoughts, our behavior, and our actions are a direct result of our beliefs. They can inspire us or destroy us. This means that it is vital that we start to question the dogmatic nature of our beliefs. We need to see them as movable and changeable instead of seeing them as an accepted principle. So when we look at values and beliefs combined, there's a great quote by Mahatma Gandhi. It talks about your beliefs becoming your thoughts, your words, your actions, your habits, your values, and your values, your destiny. And it really shows that connection between our truth and our reality. and how that creates our belief system through the knowledge that we get through all different avenues of our life. So what is it that makes our strengths and our values and our beliefs unique to us? Our behaviour is a direct result of three areas: the characteristics we possess, the experiences that we have, and the external events that create those experiences. I want to talk to you now, introduce you to the NLP communication model. How is knowing about this model useful? Well, this shows us the various factors which affect human communication and enables us to communicate with greater flexibility while understanding other people's point of views. Therefore, understanding this, we're able to relate to people more easily and respond to them on their terms or in their language, if you like. This is all about how we build rapport with people, how we communicate with people to get some successful outcomes. It's also how we facilitate empathy and compassion in our human interactions. As human beings, we're constantly taking in information through our five senses: sounds, pictures, smells, taste, touch, and we are processing it at an average rate of about 4 million bits per second. That's like a vast majority of this information is received and takes place in our unconscious mind, like that iceberg. So trying to consciously process all this information would literally drive us crazy. Our individual filters are determined by our perceptions of time, space, matter, and energy, as well as the language we use, our understanding of words, gestures, and memories, and the unique way we go about making our decisions. Our mind creates individual filters, and they process the information as it comes through those filters and creates or constructs your sense of reality. It creates what we call internal representations, or your map of reality. An internal representation that you create with pictures, sounds, emotions, feelings, tastes, and smells, which motivates the behaviors that you display. And all of this happens in a millisecond every time we have a particular behavior. It's amazing. This means that everyone experiences any given situation differently. We unconsciously manipulate sensory information to create our subjective perceptions based on our own programming. Our programming is determined by the sum of our experiences through our own growth and development as human beings. Our brain only has the capacity to manage 7 to 9 chunks of information, and it prioritizes those things that are important. So as humans, the first thing we do is we delete, distort, or generalize any of the input that comes through. So with deletion, we look at the extreme amount of information that's entering through our mind and being processed through our nervous system. And we are forced to delete certain aspects of that current experience and pay attention to others. We focus on what is most important at a specific moment in time. Right now, as you're focused listening to me, or perhaps following the screen, I want you to stop and take a moment while I pause and be aware of all of the distractions and noises around you. It's only then that you will notice what you have deleted. Another great exercise is to sit with another person and begin a discussion with that person whilst having a third person talking in one of your ears, and notice the level of difficulty in focusing and continuing that conversation with the person you sat down with. Next, we have distortion. Now, if we were to try and read this slide called The Power of the Brain, have a moment now and try and read what this says. The fact that you can actually understand the message here is an incredible indication of the power of our brain. Yeah? We misrepresent our reality through distorting our experiences of information. So when we are intimidated by certain people, or when we are perhaps frightened of a harmless situation, or when we're procrastinating, or misinterpreting what somebody says. These are all examples of how people distort reality. A couple of examples of this are when you're at night time, if you see the coat on the back of the door and kids think it's a monster, or someone sees a stick in the bush and they think it's a snake. This is a classic example of distorting and the power of that brain to be able to do that visually. The process of planning, imagining, or visualizing something also uses distortion as a way of constructing our goals and also building our compelling futures. So the act of distortion, as you can see, can either motivate us or it can completely deflate us based on what we choose to think. The last one, before we even get started, is generalization. This is a process of learning and drawing conclusions based on one or two experiences. For example, someone might learn to drive a car for the first time and they quickly generalize and say, well, now I've driven that car once, I can drive all types of cars all the time. In the same vein, someone might have a negative experience and generalize that through their life, and it may result in issues later on. An example of this might be, I don't like heavy metal music, having heard one song, so I never ever listen to heavy metal music again. Another experience might be going to a Thai restaurant, and you go to a Thai restaurant and you don't like the food at that restaurant, so you decide, I'm never eating Thai food again. Sometimes I wish I could do that with strawberry donuts. One of the most common examples is when people eat something and they get sick and they blame the prawn. Always blame the prawn, even if they haven't had a prawn. What are the things that you can think of that you might generalize? One of the generalizations that we hear a lot is when people speaking in global terms. People say things like they. Who are they? They is a complete generalization and a very common one in our language. We can hear this in language in phrases such as they said, or it's always the way, or they all do it like that. Generalization is very common in the world today. Everybody does it, which is a generalization in itself. Like all processes, generalizations can be used unresourcefully to stop us from trying new things, or resourcefully using tried and true methods that create successful outcomes over and over again. Now let's look at time, space, matter, and energy. These filters are one of the most unconscious filters. Firstly, when we are looking at our behavior, we are influenced by time, space, matter, and energy, where you are at any time and what surrounds you. You may have heard people talking about the energy in the room, or it's that time of year where people become tired at the end of the year and energize their new year, or it's just that time of day. Zesty mornings, slow afternoons, the 3 p.m. chocolate and coffee internal alarm. And after hours, that push to complete tasks and succeed at home or at work. Then we are often impacted with what's happening in the world around us, in our direct circles of influence and the greater world. How do we choose to have an impact on a daily basis? These impacts include, but not limited to, world affairs, what's going on in the world, cultural affairs, local and international, financial, religious, business, the weather and our environment. And I've said it before, that 77% of the news is negative. So why do we immerse ourselves in it, knowing how it can impact the time, space, matter, and energy around us? I know for myself right now, I'm only reading the news maybe once a day because there's so much negativity in the news and so much differing information about what we should be doing in this current environment. There's an exercise that you could do. Example, I recall having an amazing experience with a client. The energy in the room was great. There was music in the background. The morning was running very smoothly. Everyone seemed to be in a good mood. I felt energized and ready to really serve my clients at that time. I wanted to make a difference, and that day I felt that I was doing just that. And all of that was inspired or motivated by the time, space, matter, and energy in the room. So the exercise for you is think about a time where you have recognized the time, space, matter, and energy around you and how that has created the psychology and physiology that you bring. The next thing we look at is language. Okay, language is the selective use of words that we use to create energy in the messages that we are communicating. One of the things you can never take back are words that come out of your mouth. Your language has a great deal of power to influence as it has its own energy. We can give meaning to the world because we have the ability to use our language. How that communication is interpreted, is processed and understood by the receiving party is completely up to us. So the one thing to remember is that we are 100% responsible for the response that we get to our communication. And if we are not getting the response that we want, whose accountability is it to change the way that they are communicating? It's yours, because you can't control the way another person communicates. That response is what will drive behavior. Our use of language can change the energy and intent of any message. And language is driven by these key factors. The tone of voice. I'm sure you've all heard that before. Don't use that tone of voice with me, young lady. The sound and the direction, the timbre or quality of your voice, the tempo or the speed in which that you speak, and the actual words that you use. We know that the power of the pause, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but people who use pauses in their language sound very, very intelligent, don't they? All right, just to show us how you get hooked with words and language, I've got a picture that I want to show you. This is a quick question. Here are two images, and this is from some scholars in the US that did an experiment around this, Edward Hubbard and Ramachandran. The question is this. There are two pictures here. One of the pictures is named Booba, and one of the pictures is named Kiki. Now, if I were to ask you which one was which, what would you say? 95% of people said that Booba was on the right and Kiki was on the left. Did you agree with that? Let me tell you why. So this tells us that our thoughts come fully accessorized with visual images, symbols, interpretations, judgments, inferences, abstractions, and actions. The reason that we think that the right-hand side is Booba is because of the soft edges and the soft curves. And it seems softer as a word itself. So the image is soft, the word is soft, and that is why we relate that word to that picture. The reason we relate Kiki to the picture on the left is because of the sharp edges and the sharp tones and the lines in the image. And it suggests that the words Kiki are sharper words. So in language, it says that when we're using Booba type language, our words are not going to come across as harsh as if we were perhaps using Kiki language. When you think about it, most of the swear words that we say are Kiki language, except for one we use to market our country, which is, where the bloody hell are you? Because it seems like more appropriate. So when we're thinking about this in other terms, when you say to somebody, can you come in? I'd like to give you a bit of constructive feedback. The word constructive is a Kiki word. If you were to say to someone, you know, I really want to just have a conversation with you about how we could maybe stretch you even further on what you're doing and how we could challenge you and give you an opportunity to learn something else. How would that sound? The two conversations are so different, but the point is that the response that you will get to those two conversations are also very different. You're going to find people more open to having a conversation when using a Booba language style than when using Kiki language style. One of the things we also need to be really aware of is using negative prefixes. So what we need to understand is that the unconscious mind deletes negative prefixes in language. Here's an example. If I were to say to you, don't think of a blue tree, what happens? You're either thinking of a tree, you're either thinking of a blue tree, maybe a green tree, close to blue, but you're thinking of a tree. So what happens in your mind is for you to not think about something, you have to think about that thing. When I say to someone, don't worry, what the unconscious mind hears is worry. So sometimes we can reframe that language, and this is the power of positive language. So here are some examples of negative and positive language. You say it's confusing. You might say it's not clear. So people hear clear. It's too hard or it's difficult. It's not easy. So the language a person hears, the unconscious mind hears easy. Sorry about the wait. Thank you for waiting. If you were that sorry, you wouldn't have made me wait. So you just say thank you for waiting. No problem, which is something we say a lot here. No problem. It essentially says problem. The unconscious mind hears problem, whereas you say happy to assist. I'm sick. I'm not 100%. Don't get angry. I can see you're not happy. So you can see how reframing your language can have a big impact on the way you communicate with people. Now I want to look at our memories. Now your memories are the height of your awareness. Our memories are the individual and collective experience that influence our current perceptions. Our present behaviours are significantly influenced by our collections of past memories. Our memories also help in creating our experiences and our beliefs. There is a general consensus among neuroscientists and psychologists that say the present plays a very small part in our behaviour. They believe as we go through this process and as we get older, our reactions in the present are more and more reactions to collections of past memories that are organised in a specific way. So it's really important to understand the memories that we're reaching for. Now, when you combine this with our decisions, our past decisions about who we are and what we're capable of, these decisions affect what we are faced with in the present. Past decisions are what create our present values, our beliefs, and our attitudes. Therefore, they influence how we respond to current situations. They affect the decisions that we are faced with in the present day. Therefore, influence our mental toughness and our ability to bounce back, or our resilience. Our decisions are mostly based on our experiences and beliefs. So knowing that, we also know that we can use our decisions to create new beliefs or change the perceptions that we have about ourselves or others. Many decisions that we make are based on our early childhood programming. Here, we initially built our structure of our beliefs and values based on our experiences. The impact of those early decisions create triggers in our lives now for us as we grow and develop through all of the stages of our life. So when we talk about triggers, we talk about a past experience or decision or memory that you had a specific emotional response to back in your past, and you are still having that same emotional response to now in your present and in your future. So that's what a trigger is. A trigger is obviously can be resourceful or quite unresourceful, which leads us to our attitudes. Now, they say about attitudes are like a flat tire. You can't go anywhere until you change them. Attitudes are a way of thinking or feeling connected to our values and belief systems. So I hope you're really taking on board here how all of these things connect together and connect with our neuroscience and how we run our own behaviours. Attitudes are a collection of values and beliefs around a particular subject. We are ultimately responsible for our own level of attitude and our ability to change it. Therefore, we would find it very difficult to be able to change someone else's attitude. And this comes down to that question of how do we motivate people? You can't motivate people. You can only create an environment that people choose to participate in that can be a motivating environment. Your attitude and your physiology and your psychology, which is how you hold your body and how you work your mind and your self-talk, will determine the quality of your life and your own personal success. Our attitude is what drives the practice of our skills. So therefore, knowledge is of no benefit if you have an attitude of indifference or victimization or blame or disbelief in yourself. A positive attitude will convert an average performer into a top performer. Attitudes are learned behaviors, their habits, their perceptions, and they are judgments. Remember, whenever you're in conflict with someone, there is one factor that can make the difference between damaging that relationship and deepening it, and that factor is your attitude. So our final filter is belief, and I've talked a lot about belief, but what is it? It's a principle that is accepted as true or real without proof. It is essentially an opinion or a conviction. Beliefs are our influences. Now, all of these things together in that much time even faster than that, create our external behaviours. They create our internal representation, which is all the things we're thinking, feeling inside, and then our external behaviours are what we push out in our behaviour. From this point, we have created our state, and this is where it's so important, having gone through all of those filters, how to understand why people all respond differently to similar situations. So we've talked about creating state. Now we're going to talk about taking action. Do you take action when a problem occurs, or don't move until you're forced to? When we think about action, there are 4 areas. There are those people who are proactive, who think about things and plan and make things happen. Then the people who are reactive, who are impulsive and just get going. Then we have people who are meditative. They just take time and think about and feel what they're feeling and get into the space where they can take action. And then we have our thinkers, who can be our procrastinators as well, who spend so much time thinking they get into a bit of analysis paralysis. Which type of person are you in taking action? How we take action simply describes how much reflection we need to give to a specific situation. And people all do it differently. The ways we think create our blueprint. And sometimes we're born with different filters that underpin our personalities, which explain why people respond differently in similar situations. Some of the thinking patterns we have, or some of the program patterns we have, just a couple I want to mention to you. One is moving towards pleasure or moving away from pain, moving towards possibility or moving towards necessity, or matching and mismatching. Now, one of the most common ones is this pleasure and pain. So people are trying to either avoid pain, which motivates them to act, or move towards pleasure, which motivates them to act. In some circumstances, when I think about the gym, for example, some people love going to the gym. They get endorphins running and they get energy and they feel focused and they feel like they can just go out and take on the world. Yeah. When I go to the gym, it's like I'm going to the house of pain. I know they're going to put me through the ringer, and then I'm going to hurt. By the time I get home, I'm going to struggle to get out of the car. I'm going to get back, and then 3 days later, when my body has healed, I have to do it all over again. But you know why I do it? Because I want to stay fit and healthy, because I've got a 6-year-old that I've got to be a parent for. But for me, it's moving away from the pain of not being around from my child. The people that want to feel fit and healthy all the time, it is moving towards pleasure. I love going. I get my endorphins. What is it for you? When we think about schooling or university or working, it's like people who plan and execute that plan, they are moving towards pleasure. People who are leaving things to the last minute and just handing things in right when they're due or a day late, these are people that are moving away from the pain of not achieving. So we are motivated in different ways. There is not one way better than the other. It's just to accept that people do things in a certain way. So you might be around people who are very organized, and you might be around people who still deliver, but they're very last minute because they work better with that pressure on them. So possibility or necessity, this pattern you can hear in people's language. People who say, I need to do this, versus people who say, I want to do this. An example in this current situation, I need to go online, but I want to go online. So possibility and necessity, again, 2 different ways of looking at things. People can look at with a growth mindset and say, what are the possibilities? What can I learn in this current environment? And then on the other hand, people might say, what do I need? What do I need to do in this current environment so I can survive? Again, they're just 2 different ways of people looking at a same situation. Then we have matches and mismatches. And these are those people, I don't know if you've met one, that whatever you say, they will disagree with you. Versus people that whatever you say, they will agree with you. So they're people that will be thinking the same as you think, or they agree with the same things that you agree with. And then you've got people that it doesn't matter what you say, they disagree. Finally, we look at communication. We look at people who speak specific or people that speak global. We talked a little bit about this before. People that speak global use a lot of they terminology, we all terminology. People that speak specific will talk about lots and lots of details. So you might often find when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're going all into the nitty-gritty, they are specific in their pattern of thinking, in their pattern of making things come to life. People who are global are more big picture oriented. So the problem with global is sometimes people can find them hard to follow. One of the issues with specific is people just find it takes too long to follow them. So it's about finding that middle ground, or that ability to be able to switch behaviours to global and specific. Sometimes there is a need for specific when you're looking at contract or risk or things like that. And sometimes there is a need for global, where it's like, this is what I need to tell them, the overall, the big picture, but the specific comes down to a different area. I hope that's clear. Now I want to talk about changing limiting beliefs. So we talked about what beliefs were, things that we just assumed to be true for us based on our experiences. But sometimes the beliefs that we have do not serve us. We know that the dictionary defines it as a principle that is accepted as true or real without proof, an opinion or conviction. It's a feeling of certainty about what something means. The challenge is that most of our beliefs are generalizations about our past based on interpretations of painful and pleasurable experiences. So how do our ideas turn into beliefs? And if you think for a moment of a tabletop with no legs, without any legs, the tabletop won't even be able to stand up by itself. This is like a limiting belief. A belief, on the other hand, it has legs. To believe something, you have references to support the idea. You might have specific experiences that back up the belief, some facts. The legs are what make your tabletop solid, and they make you certain about your beliefs. Here's an example. If you believe that you're an intelligent person, then you're likely to have a lot of references to back that up. Maybe you did well in school. Maybe people always tell you how smart you are. Or maybe you catch on to things very quickly, or you're a fast learner. The key is to make sure that you're consciously aware of the beliefs that you're creating. If they don't empower you, change them. All personal breakthroughs begin with a change in belief. The moment we begin to honestly question our beliefs and the experiences we assign to them, we no longer feel absolutely certain about them. This opens the door to replacing any old disempowering beliefs with new beliefs that support you in any direction that you want to go. So if you develop the absolute sense of certainty that powerful beliefs provide, then you can get yourself to accomplish virtually anything, including those things that other people think are impossible. How are beliefs created? You know, you can find experiences to back up almost any belief that you have, even the ones that don't serve you. So our beliefs may be viewed as good or bad depending on the context, situation, and people involved. If a belief is the truth as one understands the truth to be for them, then we know that the truth itself is your fact. It's neutral, it's without feeling, and it's neither good or bad, it just is. Our personal belief system is a combination of our upbringing, our environment, our schooling, the news and media, television, movies, the internet, every experience that our mind ever takes in. At times, these beliefs serve us. All too often, however, they don't. Once formed, our belief system is extremely difficult, though not impossible, to change because it operates primarily on both a unconscious and subconscious level. We sometimes look for situations that make our beliefs credible. So we will have a belief and then we look for the situation to make our belief true rather than the other way around. And the interesting thing about that is the only thing that will change our belief is to experience it differently. Let me give you some examples. One of the great examples is about money and abundance, people's belief around that. If you were raised to believe that money is evil and wealthy people are all nasty or dishonest or unhappy, then the person who is most likely going to sabotage whenever they're getting close to bringing in the cash, because they might never realize the self-sabotage because they think of themselves as kind and honest and a desire to be happy. The exact opposite of what their truth is about wealthy people. They could never allow themselves to become one of those people. I hope that makes sense. There are so many beliefs that we create based on our experience, and only when we change that experience can we realize that there is greater opportunity, greater growth. Our belief system supports our values, and the quality of our beliefs significantly influences the quality of our lives. So our beliefs and values essentially create our identity. There are some really general and popular limiting beliefs, such as, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, you don't like me. For a belief to be sustained, we need evidence, something that holds it up. So we talked about the analogy of the tabletop. And if the belief is the tabletop, it is the evidence that become the legs that hold that table up. And that's the same with limiting beliefs. If you have a limiting belief and you can't find evidence to hold up that limiting belief, then that limiting belief is failing you. One of the solutions to limiting beliefs is really to ask yourself, what is the evidence that this is my truth? An example of this, here's one on the screen. Am I confident? Am I good with people? Am I passionate about what I do? Am I clear on what is expected of me? Do I often get good feedback? Now, if you can answer yes to all of those things, then the limiting belief of I'm not good enough cannot be sustained. We're often our own worst enemy. So ask questions outside of yourself that will provide you with the evidence to hold up your belief or to dismantle your limiting belief. Think about a limiting belief that you might have and start asking yourself, what is the evidence? Now, for you to do that, it takes a lot of truth and honesty on your part. What is the evidence that this belief is true? And if it's a limiting belief and there is no evidence, then you need the courage to say, I'm not going to continue with that belief. You can also establish beliefs based on your personal experience of cause and effect. This is when you continue to do something and there is an impact of you doing that thing and you are responsible for that impact. But what you have then is learned helplessness. If you consistently perform a behavior and always get a negative outcome, you then create a belief that you have no power or influence over creating what it is you're trying to do. The trick in learned helplessness is to adjust the elements that you can and to accept the things you can't change. So if it was that you ran late all the time, you're not going to be able to change the traffic. So what is it that you can change? The possibilities including altering the physical elements. In that scenario, it might be such as setting alternative meeting times or change the time that you're leaving home. You're not going to be able to change the traffic. Certainly, the one thing you can change is how you view these events. It's been said that the most important opinion a person will ever hold is the one that they hold about themselves. So if there is no evidence, change the way you talk to yourself and think about the belief and ask yourself, how is this resourceful for me? We can also change limiting beliefs like, I'm not good at, I don't know how to, I don't have what it takes, I can't, by asking yourself these questions. What would you do if this obstacle didn't exist? What if you secretly knew the answer all along? Because sometimes it's just about not being able to stretch our thinking. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And this speaks to the fears people have about what other people think. What would somebody that you admire do? Or again, what is one thing that you could do right now? So we want to learn to retrain our brain. Change limiting beliefs with these two words. What if, what if, what if? How you retrain your brain. Here's some examples. I'm not good at this. I have all the resources I need. I'm always late. I prepare so I can be on time. I am not confident. I can do this. You got this. I never have enough. I can manage money easily. And one of my favorites, particularly when my mother is talking to me about parenting, I say, you know what? I'm doing the best that I can with the resources I have. And if I could, I'd probably do more. So one thing to know is that we are human and we all have 4 universal fears deep down there tucked away. Number 1, not being good enough. Number 2, not being loved or liked. Number 3, not belonging or being part of something. And number 4, fear of failure or success, which is the same, because if you don't succeed, you fail. If you fail, you don't succeed. So as humans being, we are not alone. We all have those. It's how we deal with those, how we bounce back from those, and how we create our mental toughness around those. The thing I want to leave you with today to remember is the capacity of your mind. You have control over only 3 things. Those things are what you think, what you say, and how you behave. You can't control anybody else. So for people out there who think that they can control their environment and the world around us, you can't. You only control those 3 things. What you think, what you say, and how you behave. So start thinking about how you're talking to yourself, the things that you're saying to yourself, the things that you're saying to others, and how your behavior is coming out, how you feel about it, and how you're being perceived by others. I want to leave you with the 5 principles of success. One thing is, know what you want at this time, even if it's a small thing. Have a task, have a goal, have something that enables you to contribute. Then don't just think about it, take some action on it, even the smallest action, even if it's about, today I'm going to get out of bed in the morning and get dressed, depending on how you're feeling. Take that action. Then use your observation. Be aware of the people around you. Observe your own self internally. Observe your own thinking. Write down the things that you're saying to yourself, and then observe the people around you and how they are behaving. We're in an environment where people are not behaving characteristically how they may in any normal given situation. So be aware of that. Behavioural flexibility. This is a time of significant change, particularly in the travel and hospitality environment, and know that you have to be able to be flexible around that change and what you're doing. The body and mind is so important. Your physiology and your psychology of success. This is how we hold ourselves and how we think about ourselves. And so you create that energy. If you're feeling blur, then it's because your body is feeling blur. So get up and do something. Move around the room. Take a little dance in the living room. Anything. Take a walk. Walk the dog. Do something different to get some energy back into your physical body, and that will help your psychological self as well. Remember that belief plus actions equal results. Have beliefs that work for you. Have beliefs that don't limit you, and know that your experiences are stronger than any of your limiting beliefs, and change the experiences that you are having so that you can sustain beliefs that actually work for you, not against you. Thank you so much for joining me today, for participating in this, and for your feedback. I truly appreciate being part of the Time program, and I hope that you get a great deal out of this. I am happy in this period of time as well to be able to talk to anyone who feels like they're struggling, and my details are available with Time. Thank you so much, and all the best for the near future.